I've got something exciting. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. I am your host, John Espinosa, to the Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the Leading Leaders podcast. Today is a very special episode for me. It's an honor to have a guest on that I've been trying to get on, I don't know, for at least 6 months here. And he's a busy guy. And, I was lucky enough to get an hour of his time today. But with me today, I have Mr. Oscar Torres. And he is not only a great friend of mine, I love him like a brother. I really do. And it's one of those relationships. And we all have those people in our lives that we look up to. And I look up to Oscar. Ever since I met him, I knew that he had something special in him. And today he's going to share a little bit about who he is, a little bit about his leadership philosophy, and where he has taken the organization that we've been a part of to new heights. And we are thriving right now under his leadership. So we're going to dig into this. First, I wanted to kick it off, just give the listeners a little background, Oscar. First of all, welcome to the Leading Leaders.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. You're getting me all teary-eyed already, man. We're just getting started too, It's it's definitely an honor to be here. I've been following you and what you've been doing with the podcast, and I've seen the people you've interviewed, and I'm really, honored to be a part of that. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, so a little bit of background about myself. I was born in Honduras, Central America. Migrated to this country back in 1987, many years back. And it's been quite a journey, right? I think all of us have a journey, regardless of where you're born. All of us have a journey. And, when I came to this country, obviously a foreign country for me, didn't speak the language. Thankfully, I picked it up real quick. As a kid, you absorb everything like a sponge. I remember watching Sesame Street, reading Rainbow, back in the day, and kind of learning the language, because it was a whole summer. I arrived here in May of 87, and it was that whole summer, and then I would start school in September. So throughout that whole summer, I should say, man, it was just absorbing, and not for nothing. I mean, from what I recall, in 6 months I was already like speaking English. So it's been quite a journey. Loved aviation. Joined the FAA, put myself through school, and been an air traffic controller now for 17 years. For the Federal Aviation Administration has been it's been a great ride. And I can honestly say that the highlight of my professional career has been not just leading the Hispanic Coalition, the NHCFA, but being a part of it. I started at the local level, and I know we're going to get into more details as far as, how it works and everything else, but at the local level, just trying to contribute, I saw an organization that had a mission that really wanted to impact policy and make a difference, impact, our communities in a very good way. So, I got involved in that way, and the rest is history, man. I know we're going to get into it more detailed, and, it's been a privilege and an honor to be the president of this organization and work alongside professionals and great individuals and foster great friendships, like you just mentioned earlier. I mean, I consider you a brother as well. Having deep conversations, sincere conversations of how we can move this organization forward. And, I'm really proud to be here, and you are been a part of it. So I'm not going to take any credit away from you. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, more in depth.
Yeah, no, thanks, Oscar. And, one thing, and you can quickly see that Oscar has a passion for helping others, and he has done great things. Oscar, I've known you for a long time, and one of the things that always sticks out to me is your ability to relate to people. Everywhere I go, just a quick story, in the organization that we're in Oscar mentioned the coalition. We have about 600 members, active, retired members in the organization. We're going to go to a story when that was not the case, when Oscar first took over in his presidency. But one thing that, no matter where we go, in Oscar, he gets around. He goes everywhere, out to the conferences and speaking events and the outreach efforts. And there's one thing, if I don't have Oscar with me, they'll come up to the table and they'll be like, "Where's Oscar?" And so I'm like, well, I'm thinking about making a shirt saying, "I'm Oscar, Oscar's not here," right? But that speaks to Oscar's ability to relate. He has an innate ability to remember people's names, where he met them, if he recruited them, the day he recruited them. I mean, and that all speaks to how much value that you place in to individuals and helping others get to where they're going, which is our mantra here in the Go Be Great community and the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. So I'm excited today to speak with you, Oscar, and we're going to kick this thing off. Listening to your past, it's no surprise that when you walked into the NHCFAE and we were struggling, this was coming out of the pandemic, missed a conference, our national training conference, which we hold annually. We missed 1 year. I think we had the second
virtual one. Yeah. We missed 1 year and then we had the virtual one. Yeah.
And that's our big event. Normally that was our time that we get all of our familia together and we get to see each other and reconnect. So we were 2 years without a conference. Oscar walked in the door and I was not at the meeting. We have quarterly meetings and this meeting took place in Miami, right, Oscar? And
it was there, yeah.
And we had a speaker come in, one of our current members right now. And I just want you to kind of give the listeners a little bit of background on, what that meeting, during that meeting, some things that were talked about as far as the state of the coalition and what was running through your mind at that time coming on board as our newly elected president.
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that, when I stepped into this role, I was the vice president, right? Prior to becoming president. And, I'd like to give kudos to our dear friend, Bill Fernandez, the former president, who unfortunately through his 2-year tenure, it was all COVID. There was really not much we can do. We tried as much as we could. We used obviously the virtual option, Zoom. We did a virtual conference and he did a great job. But he had, I think, and I want to commend him and give him a lot of credit. He had that passion, and I know you would agree with me, John. He had that passion and commitment to the organization that I knew that when I stepped into the president's role, I had to carry that as well. I had to carry, obviously as a president, as a leader, you want to kind of set your agenda. You kind of want to set, the way you want to kind of do things. But at the same time, I think a true leader and a real good leader can value what your predecessor brought to the table and just grabbed some of those great things that, he or she brings and just continue forward, right? Because, it goes to the motto, if it ain't broke, why try to fix it? And I think, there were a couple of other things that Bill was working on that we went ahead and continued, like the internship programs, et cetera, and everything else. But going into that meeting in Miami, it was it was the first time we met in person, as a team. Just kind of trying to plot the course, like where are we going? But first we had to really do a big dive in where we are. And the reality was that we were losing members a lot. I don't fault members for not being active or any way. It's just there was not a lot of activity. So human nature is, all right, I'm part of something, but I'm not seeing anything, right? So why am I, then as a member of something, you start questioning, why am I a member of this? Why am I contributing to something that I'm not really seeing any results or any productivity or anything of that nature? So we got an assessment and we noticed, I think that coming out of that meeting, I noticed that we had to re-engage our current members. That was the main thing. And I always use the analogy of a skyscraper, and you've heard me say this before. The skyscraper, why did the skyscraper stay up high, through storms, through wind and everything else? Because they have a solid foundation. So for employee associations like ours, the NHCFAE, our foundation is our membership, right? Our members are the ones that really hold the fort. They're the ones that really kind of, if we don't have a solid foundation, just like any other building, it's not going to last long. It's going to collapse. And we were on the verge of collapsing. I mean, it was that urgent. So one of the things that, we decided to do as a team, and I kind of told everybody, which, as an organization, what is one of the focuses? Growth, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we had to, as a leader, I had to make a decision and say, you know what? Let's pause growth for now. And everybody was like, well, what do you mean? Recruitment is always big, right? Oh, we want to recruit new members. It was like, listen, how are we going to build on something that's kind of shaky at the foundation? It's not going to hold too long. So one of the things that we kind of came out of that, it was like, well, we need to go back and re-engage our members. We need to go out and just kind of, for one, reintroduce ourselves to them, right? But also tell them thank you for being part of something really special. And when I say being part of something special is that why did a lot of members leave? I think maybe back then was they weren't seeing anything. They were like, hey, man, I'm part of something here, but I'm not seeing anything. So we want to kind of bring that back. We wanted to make our members proud again of being part of something special. And what is that? What did that entail? Well, we talk a lot about outreach. We talk a lot about the impact that we have in our communities. When we have an event at a local school and talking to youngsters that look like us. And sometimes, in our culture, unfortunately, it's like, okay, my dad did this. Well, I'm going to do that as well. And there's really no options to kind of go, somewhere, explore something that just hasn't really been presented to a family like me. In my case, aviation has never been a part of my, in my background or anything else. So I just kind of took that step myself. So anyway, circling back to Miami, we realized, let's go back. Let's go back and reconnect with our members. Let's do that in facility visits, right? As, we're all employees of the Federal Aviation Administration. So we have the ability to go and visit our members or where they are, local facilities, et cetera. So we started doing that. And with that, it turned out that, members were happy to see us. They were like, oh, we're glad to hear. But on top of that, let's say, okay, how can we impact our communities, right? Our members live all across the country. So let's say, why don't we get our members involved? Let's try to do things in their local community so they can see some results, something for them to be proud of. And, fast forward, well, just to give a little context, right? We were down, you mentioned 600 members, here, give or take, and we're still working on some of those membership numbers. But, when we first started, we were down like 420, close to 400, right?
It was low.
And we were losing members.
Oh, it's been years. Yeah.
I mean, losing members on a weekly basis was a normal thing. And that was, at the end of the day, I think the really wake-up call was like, hey, we continue this trend, we're going to cease to exist. And that's just the reality of things. So we had to turn things around, stop the recruiting. Let's focus on our members, thank our members, reconnect with our members, visit with our members. And at the end of the day, it's just a formula that really worked, but it took, and I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit more, but it took a lot of effort, right? And when it comes to leading an organization, I'll pause here on that. But the Miami meeting was an eye-opener. It really set the path forward to say, okay, this is where we need to be. This is where we need to go. And as a leader, you got to give your team direction. If you have a team and you don't give them a direction, it's like anything else. Without a GPS, we're so used to a GPS, it's like, oh man, where do I go? But anyway, we could go into a little bit further as far as how we can went ahead and accomplish where we are today with the growth, enthusiasm, and the growth that we've experienced in the last several years.
Yeah, no, so just quickly, I want to tease out a couple things that you just said, because they are gold nuggets when it comes to leadership 101, when it comes to leading teams, leading organizations, leading businesses, because you're a business owner yourself, right? He didn't mention that he also has business going on. He's a man of many talents. So, one of the things is that foundation. In every good organization, you have a well-built foundation. And for a new leader coming in, and I know you weren't new to the organization, but now the organization is on your shoulders. The office of the president, you're the one that sets the vision. You're the one that sets that direction. You're the one that, determines the path forward. And for you to be so decisive about, hey, listen, we're going to reset that foundation. We're going to stop. And that's hard for leaders to say, is we're going to stop doing things, because in the state of chaos, you want to do more to get out of it. But one lesson that I want the listeners to take away, sometimes you have to slow down and you have to stop, right? And refocus and recalibrate. And, a lot of organizations out there, they fail because they don't do that. They pour more money, they pour more resources into, going faster when they really need to go slower. So kudos to you, Oscar, for recognizing that, in really taking the organization from there. So let's go on. One thing that I do want to point out, and I didn't say this earlier, is it's a volunteer organization.
Correct. Yeah.
You actually, our members pay to be a part of the organization, but they don't get paid as far as a paycheck. There's other benefits that come to them, but you are leading a volunteer organization that was falling apart, and to get people to form together and unite and, work towards a common goal. Tell us a little bit about those challenges when you are leading. Maybe somebody out there is in a booster club, or, they have an internship program, or they're leading an organization that people don't necessarily aren't getting paid, and or they aren't directly impacted by the individual. So maybe you're talking 2 or 3 levels up here. What are some challenges leading a volunteer organization, leading a workforce that don't necessarily isn't getting any monetary benefits from the organization?
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't see it as a challenge, but for one, right, you got to lead by example, right, in a volunteer organization. You cannot ask your team to do things that you're not willing to do. And that's a common phrase that everybody uses and everything else, even in the paid environment, right? And when you mentioned earlier, I get around and I do all that stuff. And the majority of the time, that's all my time off. Those are my days off. Don't get me wrong. As members of, as a recognized employee association of FAA, yeah, we get some support. But I would say 90 or 85% of the time, everything is done on my own time. So the way to do that is you got to inspire your team. And one of the things that I did was I gathered a team, a couple of other air traffic controllers, and we started physically visiting other facilities, just kind of going out there and just saying, hey, we're here. How are you? Etc. Introducing your organization to new people, saying hello to current members who have not seen anyone in the leadership role in years and even decades. So I think that's one of the key things with the volunteer organization is like, man, if you're a leader in it, lead by example. You got to kind of inspire your team, right? And that's what we did. When we're going out and visiting these facilities, current members were happy to see us, but then people who never knew about the organization learned about us and then joined. So slowly that started happening, and then we will report it out. That's another key thing, right? Thanks to social media and the technology that we have now, I couldn't even fathom how our founding members of this organization got the word out about the organization, with no social media and anything, just a headliner and a fax or something. But thankfully we have that. So that was part of the process as well, kind of like promoting that, like, hey, look, we were, I can remember one of my first visits was out in LA when we went to visit the Western Pacific region. We were out there, we had a little get together, took some pictures, put it in social media. And this was right after COVID, right? Hey, we're back. We're out there. We're visiting facilities. And then kind of like leave it out there. We'll be there near you. We'll go there and we'll be there near you. And, and that's exactly what we did. So, I would like to point out that me as president, right, I have regional directors all over the country. And these are the individuals that are there at the local level. And that's the team that you kind of want to have and say, okay, no, I'm going to be there by your side, right? Like, for example, we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, Southwest region. Lydia Gomez Martinez, who's our director, is like, Lydia, let's plan something. We're going to be there. Boom. We took the whole board over there. Why? Because her feedback was, we have not been to Albuquerque in so long. So let's go. So that's when you start kind of, and again, promote it, show it, take pictures. And and then at the end of the day, that just kept going, and a lot of people were like, hey, Oscar, man, you're all over. And, to your point, you're all over the place. People know you, but that's what it takes, right? And now we're in a point, fast forward now a couple of years, our directors are doing stuff on their own now. Yeah. And now I'm feeling left out. They're like, hey, you got to invite me. Oh, no, we had to plan. But that's exactly what a leader needs to do, right? Inspire the leadership team and just lead by example. And that's what we did. We kind of got the ball rolling. And I always use the boulder analogy, right? Like a big boulder, like it's so hard to move in the beginning, but once it grabs momentum and then that thing just picks up speed and it keeps going. And that's what we did with our regional directors and then giving them support, right? And I think we're going to get into that a little bit here, but showing them that, hey, we can do this. We're a team here. It's not just me as president, I'm a leader. No, I'm going to be there in the trenches with you, side by side, and lead. I worked for a Fortune 500 company in the past, and, they had a concept where you as a manager, you were above, your peers, and you couldn't really, and I never really agreed with that. You're a team. Even if you're a manager, you're the president, or even you're a team. I never saw myself as, higher tier or anybody. No, we're in there together. We're all members of this organization. So, for leaders, looking at this podcast and treat your team like a team, right? No one is above the rest when you're really trying to achieve a goal. And at the end of the day, it works out. When you're really leading and with passion, with conviction, and leading from the heart. I think that's a key thing too, that the team can see that when you're leading them and you're like, man, you're really committed to, it's contagious.
Yeah.
They're like, man, Oscar's doing that. Well, man, he's doing it. I got to do it too. So that's the idea behind that. And at the end of the day, the end result is always, from our experiences, as you know, John, it's been great.
Yeah. No, he gave me goosebumps because, folks, if you can't get passionate and get behind what Oscar just said, you don't have a heartbeat. You don't have a pulse. He speaks with conviction. He speaks from the heart, and he leads from the heart. And one thing that I have always respected about you, Oscar, and admired about you is your ability to trust in others, your ability to lead by example. You do as you do and say what, do what you say and say what you do. That there is no gray area.
And to add to that, John, I want to say that, as a leader, you're a facilitator, at the end of the day. And I'm quoting, our good old friend, Nicolas Reyes, and you know him. He's, a big executive in the FAA, retired now pilot. I took that really to heart, and I was, he was like, man, we're facilitators. As a leader, you're a facilitator because you got to provide your team the tools and resources to succeed, and at the end of the day, if you're not doing that as a leader, how successful can you be? Yeah. So as we've been big on, providing our regional directors, what they needed, a good presentation when they're out representing the organization, because ideally, you want them to represent you. When they're sitting at a table somewhere where you're not able to be present, well, you are confident that your regional director is there and is going to represent the organization and yourself as president in a very good way. But you got to provide them with the tools, the training, the resources, everything possible. Because if you're not doing that, it's really not going to be a successful, outcome. And in turn, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit later now, succession planning, right? You want to empower your team. And when you're empowering your team, that's part of the tools and resources piece as well.
Yeah. One thing that Oscar just said, and I want to dig into it right now. I want to tell the listeners, there were 9 regions originally when Oscar took over as president, and we've consolidated some. Out of those 9 regions, Oscar, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only 6 sitting regional chapter directors.
Right.
So not all regions had leadership. And Oscar, talk a little bit about that and the importance of succession planning and where we are today from where we were.
Yeah. So you got to, as a leader, you got to realize you can't do this alone. You need a team. All right. There's no eyes and all this stuff and everything else. Yes. At the end of the day, you are the president or you're the leader of the organization, but if you don't have a mindset where you got to put a team together that's going to work with you, that's going to, that's going to have the confidence, the trust, the culture, you gotta have that in your team, because if not, you're not going to be successful, because you can't do it alone, especially in a national organization like ours, right? I live here in Georgia, North Atlanta, and as you know, John, it's like we had some vacancies in several areas. So what do? First, you strengthen the areas where you have people there, right? Southwest has always been very well represented with our regional director. With Northwest Mountain, Western Pacific has been solid. So we were like, all right, let's focus Southern region. We did that. I don't want to get into details on that, but it was funny because someone approached me in Southern region, Freddie Lazala, who was like, hey, let me take care of Miami. I said, you know what? I got a better idea for you. Why don't you run the whole region? But what you do is you give that empowerment to the person, but you give them the assurance that they're not doing it alone. Yeah. They will do it with you, right? You have a vision as a leader, but you kind of want to share that with them and be there with them. And that's what we did with Freddie down in Southern region, Miami, Florida, all those areas. Yeah. And I would travel down there and, hey, we're there. We're together. This is what you got to do, Freddie, and all this stuff. And now it's one of the most successful regions in the whole country. The biggest region with recruiting. Same thing in Great Lakes. We kind of tapped a retired member, right? Eastern right now, we had a setback with one of our regional directors, but at one point, to John's point, we had regional directors in every region. And that really is a testament to, okay, we're doing something right. And what is that right? We're bringing a team together and provide, because, for us in this organization, unfortunately, sometimes we have people that are willing to volunteer, but they're not really fully aware of what they're getting themselves into. So as a leader, you got to really shed light and into that. You got to really talk to this individual. And that's why we're kind of working on that a little bit right now. Succession planning, shadowing opportunities, because, it's like in life. If, you step into something and you realize, oh man, this is a lot to handle, then that person walks away. How, you're not really doing something right. So we want to give our members the ability to be exposed to the responsibilities, to the time commitments that it takes to be a volunteer leader of this organization, and then have them decide, okay, this is something that I want to do. Or, and that way, at the end of the day, the organization benefits overall, right? Not just throw somebody into a position and say, okay, hey, go ahead, do your thing. That's not right.
If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great.